Okay, okay. Hey there, and thanks everybody for coming to the last Hempology lecture of 2011. It's always my great pleasure to be here, and today is in fact one of my favorite topics, in that the Cannabis Buyers Club of Canada is a project that I created essentially 16 years ago, and I'm quite proud to talk about it and its history, and that's what today's lecture is. And so yeah, I'm just going to jump into it. So I thought the two sort of primary focuses of today's lecture would be the services that we've provided and the altercations or interactions we've had with the police along the way. Those are two of the more critical points. To talk half an hour about everything we do and our history would be quite difficult. And so it kind of goes back to 16 years ago when in November we had our first International Medical Marijuana Day with Hempology. And part of that day was a number of us swearing a pact to help people in medical need. And it's not hard to see that the next step is to actually provide. And so it was something that I didn't do really on my own. I met someone in Sacred Herb, Leslie, who made cookies and brownies and salves and stuff as well. As a herbalist in college in Ontario, she had made a salve for her class, and so she started to help other people with it that had different problems, and it seemed to work. And she was volunteering in the AIDS community in sort of the James Bay area. And I was actually living in a van when I moved here 16 years ago. And so I was having weekly Hempology meetings at the time, and actively, going around the community, hanging out at Sacred Herb, where I met quite a few people, including Leslie. And we would actually sit at the top of Sacred Herb, where now they don't have anything for sale, but there was couches and books, and we'd sit up there and smoke joints and discuss politics and things all day. It was a lot of fun. And so I was going there quite a bit and coming up here all the time. And anyway, I started to meet people that needed medicine. In particular, I'll never forget Bonnie. Bonnie was about 19 at the time, and to look at her, she was a very beautiful young woman. You wouldn't think there was anything wrong with her. Well, in fact, Bonnie was very sick. If she would have pulled up the sleeve in her arm, you would have seen how thin and frail she was. And if she would have talked to you about all of the medical problems she had essentially since birth, you would have just been brought to tears. However, cannabis helped her out immensely, and she had a wonderful partner at the time who was helping her out with her. But nevertheless, they were having to break the law and having a hard time keeping a constant supply. And so the other young girl I won't forget, who is still around, is my friend Kathleen, who had cancer at the time, a young 18-year-old girl. But Bonnie's the one I won't forget, because we hung out quite a bit. And so because there were so many people with AIDS that were dying very quickly at the time, in the 90s, there was not a lot of good medications for people with AIDS. They were dying very quickly and very horrible deaths. And cannabis helped. At least it slowed the imminent down, if it didn't turn it around. And they were treating them like guinea pigs with their drugs at the time. And honestly, the people that probably survived with AIDS at the time were the ones that didn't take any other drugs other than cannabis. And there are many still around today who lived through that time with AIDS, and still do, because they've used the herb, especially in California, where it's been very accepted. And in 1993, Dennis Perron started up the San Francisco Cannabis Buyers Club around the kind of gay AIDS community. And it was doing very well in San Francisco at the time. 16 years ago, I believe they were at the old police station with like a 4-story building, and it was just full tilt. And so we were inspired by that group, and together with Leslie, we punched out a mandate and made up a pamphlet. Now the mandate was very hard to come up with, because on one hand, doctors weren't going to sign anything at the time. Again, this was late 95, going into 1996, and the predominant attitude of the medical community was that cannabis likely causes a variety of medical problems, and any thought that it was good for medicine was probably parallel to, say, alcohol killing pain. That was, they thought of it as a narcotic, and that if you got drugged out, you would kill any form of pain. Was the only way that they perceived cannabis use. So the medical community wasn't going to be signing forms very quickly, although we tried to make up some small forms. But what it came down to was essentially requiring patients to prove they've been diagnosed with a permanent physical disability or disease. They didn't require the doctors to recommend it. In fact, the doctors didn't even have to know what they were doing with the information. Once that doctor's diagnosis was made and presented to us in writing, we would help people. That's what we decided to do, because it would be unfair to have people's medical access denied because of a doctor who wasn't cooperative. And so we made that fundamental decision early on, and we've stuck with it. I'm very proud of that. The only difference that's occurred in the 16 years of the club operating has been a little bit of a backtracking, and that is in the case of people with asthma. It's been very unfortunate that we had to do so because cannabis is good for people with asthma, but and I'll get to our rates in a little bit, but when we were going through court in 2004 in particular, we were having a series of problems occurring, and certainly the question of whether it was good for asthma, might be well known among people that smoke it. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but there's not a lot of good hard science to prove it's good for people with asthma. And again, the doctors are convinced that smoking cannabis causes cancer, causes a series of lung problems. It's counterintuitive for doctors to think that smoking anything is going to be good for your lungs. They just can't believe that. And so we had problems within the medical community with people with asthma. Everything else within our mandate seemed very appropriate. We have no argument with either in court or in the medical community. But the other unfortunate and strange problem we had was that the young people in Victoria, because we were in the media so much, learned, I believe even through the media, that we helped people with asthma as well. And it suddenly became like this right in Victoria, as soon as you were 18 years old, to go get a prescription for an asthma inhaler and come down to our club. And because we were being just infiltrated almost by high school age kids with asthma, we actually had to just put the block on that and retract. But other than that, we've not changed our mandate and how it works in the 16 years. And so I lived in a van. I had no pot. I was broke, really, and so the only way that I could get medicine for people would be when they would call me on the pager, get a hold of me. I'd go to their house, I'd get the money, and then I'd go get the pot, and then they'd probably smoke me a joint, and then I'd probably go back and deliver the medicine back to the patient's house. At the time, and I was sort of on and off welfare, and felt like even living in my van and stuff like that, I had my basic needs taken care of. So I actually refused to make any money on these small transactions. It just seemed both unnecessary, because I was being looked after by friends and others, I was being well taken care of, and had places to stay. I didn't have to sleep in the van. I loved sleeping in the van. I'd still be in a van likely if I didn't have to run the club. But certainly it wasn't very practical to be doing nothing but deliveries, and getting a space was the ultimate goal. It was actually my friend Kathleen that set me up with the apartment, because she didn't need to be there in the afternoon. So from 1 to 4, we opened up the club in her apartment. She would give me the keys and take off every day, and I would work there in the afternoon. I worked for a short while, and then she had to leave, and I took over the place, where I helped the club with medicine for about 5 years. And for the first while, we had some food and skin products that Leslie made, but then she took off on her own. We went a short while, honestly, without anything, which is just stupid, because we had a whole bunch of leaf, And then one day we realized we shouldn't just wait for a baker, we should be the baker. It was one of the smarter moves we've done, because relying on baked products and other products from outside of the club, I don't think would be very good, because the one thing that we've done more than provide top quality medicine in terms of pod has been to provide top quality food and skin products. And now we're up to 30, maybe even 31 food and skin products that we've developed. And that to me has been one of our greatest accomplishments. You can see our product guide, all the different little tricks that we've learned online. We want to share openly everything, and that's worked to our benefit, because there's been times where I've told trade secrets and we've been told trade secrets back, like lecithin, for example, like decarboxylizing. You know, by going out and sharing information